You know, anytime I start a seminar like this, I always like to start with the balls. And one of the reasons that I use this is because it had such a dramatic impact on my own life. And I knew that this worked in a physical sense as I just took a look and stared at it, but I wasn't quite sure how it worked in every other sense. And I know many people that when they get an understanding of how this works, that if you put a little bit into life, you're only going to get a little bit out of life. In other words, if you want to spend a lot of time complaining about what's wrong in life, that's just about the only thing you're ever going to find in your life. I like to put it another way. If you want to look at the scientific side of things, they'll say that for every action, there is an equal reaction in the opposite direction. If you want to go over to the other side to see what the theologian has to say, or the philosophers, they'll tell you exactly the same thing. They'll say that as ye sow, so shall ye reap. And then there's a way that I kind of like to use it. And it works this way. That the only thing that can flow into your life or mine, whether it be in a financial sense, whether it be in your personal life, whether it be in your family life, one thing is for certain. That the only thing that can flow into your life is based on what's flowing out of your life. I know that any time that I have this sitting at home, and some of my son's buddies will come by, he'll always take them over. They'll say, "What's this?" And he'll take it and he'll say, "Well, you see, what this means, if you put a little bit in, you get a little bit out. But if you put a whole lot in, you get a whole lot out. That's just the way it works." Now, you see, we can make what is called a conscious choice here today on what we're going to take out of this program. If you wanted to spend a little bit of time trying to find out why this program won't work, I guarantee you, you're going to find it. But there's only one reason you can ever find something wrong with anything. And that's because there must be something right with it. You see, you can't have one without the other. I mean, how would you know a good paycheck if you didn't know a bad paycheck? I mean, you can't have a hot without a cold. You can't have an up without a down, and in without an out. I mean, all the books we use here, if you look at the book Bob was using, Think and Grow Rich, it has an inside and an outside. It has back, has front. And you know, most interesting thing that I found about that is not too long ago, I was doing a seminar out in Calgary, and I was at a place called the Portical Inn. And you know, I was standing down in the basement there doing this seminar in a place like this, but there was fewer people. And at the back of the room, there was this beautiful, magnificent glass window, and as you looked through it, you could see the magnificence of the mountains. And all along the top of the mountains, you could see the beautiful snow-capped tops and the peaks, and the sun was just bouncing right off the top of those mountains. And I made an analogy quickly. I said, isn't it interesting that the only reason we can appreciate the magnificence of that mountain is because it is sitting in what is called a valley. Now, folks, everybody here today has the ability to do just one of three things. You have the ability to take anything that you're going to hear. I mean, as you sit there, you can take and gather all this information, and you can completely reject it. You can do that. Or you can take all the information and you can neglect it. And that's what a lot of people do. They get it and they neglect it. Or you can take the information and you can accept it. Now, I'm going to make a suggestion to all of you. I want you to just sit there and really think about this. Don't accept what you hear. Don't reject what you hear. And please don't neglect what you hear. But you know, folks, only a fool would not take an idea, examine that idea, kick that idea around to see if it will change, see if it will alter, or see if it will improve the end result for a happier, healthier, more productive life. Now, I've always felt that, and I guess I've learned this over a number of years, that the biggest task that I have almost every day of my life is that I have to take an idea that I have and communicate that idea to another individual in a way that will enrich their life. And you could say that that's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but you know, it is simple. And I guess the best story that illustrates this goes something like this. There was a professor one time showed up at a university like this one, and he walked in the back door and all his colleagues grabbed him. He was at a convention. And they said, "Doctor, are we ever glad you're here?" He said, "Well, what's going on?" He said, "Well, there's 500 people here and the guest speaker hasn't shown up." Said, "And you've been announced as the guest speaker." "Oh, now hold on a minute." He said, "I'm not one to go out there and give a talk in front of all my colleagues." But he said, "What's the subject?" He said, "That's the thing, you see. You're the only one that showed up without your spouse. That's why you're giving the talk." Well, he said, "What is it?" He said, "The subject's on sex." "Oh, no, not me. I'm not going up there in front of all those people who know me." No, just then his name was announced, and up he went. He got up and he stood behind that lectern there, and he just gave a 40-minute performance and just knocked your socks up. And after it was all over, got a standing ovation, away he went home, felt pretty good. He said, "I should get on the circuit here." I know a lot of people like that. And he walked in the door, and his wife, Martha, greeted him there with a big hug and a kiss, and she said, "Well, dear, how'd the convention go?" Said, "Well, dear, as a matter of fact, it was great. I was the guest speaker." Said, "Dear, you don't know anything about speaking." "I knew that. They didn't know that. Went along great." Said, "Well, dear, what'd you talk about?" Now, he's not a dumb guy, right? He said, "Honey," he said, "I'll be up all night if I tell her." "Oh," he said, "honey, I talked about sailing." "George, you don't know anything about sailing." "Well, I knew that, and they didn't know that. And they seemed to like it." Well, off they went to bed. Now, the next day, Martha's out doing the shopping. And so were all the girls that were at the convention. Now, just to show you how two people are talking about who they think they're talking about the same thing, but in reality they're not. They only think they are, but they have two different ideas. And they all spotted Martha, and they ran over and they said, "Martha, we didn't know Charlie was such an authority on the subject." "Oh," she said, "girls, he isn't really, the old fool. He only did it twice." And you know what? The first time, his hat fell off, and the second time, he fell over the side. Now, there were two people who thought they were talking about the same thing. Well, the idea that we're working with here today is to take an idea we have, transfer that idea to you as an individual. But there's only one way we can do that. Is you've got to kind of let go of the resistance. You've got to hang a little bit loose because it is somewhat disturbing. Some of the information disturbs people sometimes. It really does. It actually does. It was a Bishop Sheen was giving a great talk every Sunday afternoon. And one Sunday afternoon he was giving the talk, fellow put his hand up in the air and said, "Hold a minute, Bishop, you don't believe all that jazz, do you?" "Oh," he said, "I believe it all." He said, "Come on, Bishop, you don't believe that story that Jonah was in the stomach of the whale?" "Ah," he said, "I believe it, Bishop." He said, "Come on, Bishop, not Jonah in the stomach of the whale." He said, "Come on, you're a grown man." "No," he said, "I believe it." He said, "Well, tell me, Bishop, how are you going to prove it?" Well, he said, "I'll tell you what. When I get to heaven, I'll ask him." Say, "Yeah, but Bishop, what if you don't find him there?" He said, "Then you can ask him." So you see, if you want to reject it, you want to neglect it, go ahead. I know the information works. On page 3, at the very top, the suggested use of this program, and you know, Bob mentioned earlier that I've actually taken these ideas and I've made them work. As a matter of fact, I can remember when I first picked up the information from this program, I believe it was Earl Nightingale's Lead the Field. And I was given a suggested use of how to use that program, which took 5 minutes. Bob was working with Nightingale at that time, I wasn't. And he sold me a program for $245. That was back in 1968. That was a lot of money in 1968. That's a lot of money today for a lot of people. And he said, "Now here's what you do. You take this tape, put it in your cassette player." I didn't have one of those. And he said, "What you do is turn the cassette on," because it wasn't a popular thing in cars. But he said, "You listen to the first tape all week. Then go to the second one and listen to that all week." That was the suggested use of the program at that time. So you see, I watched this program grow up. not only grow up, but I've been able to take it and maximize it more than any individual I know that has ever gone through this seminar. And I can say that, and I can say it with conviction, I can say it with commitment. So let me just walk you through a couple of steps. Born Rich is the beginning of an exciting journey you're about to take. And like all journeys, which are properly planned and completely enjoyed, you must have these 4 basic points. You've got to work these 4 basic points. See, it's the old idea that there are 2 simple words that we could implement to really get the results we want. The first one is called order. Order. Order is the very first law of creation. And the second word is movement. And when you have order and movement working in your life, what begins to happen is there's a pattern of growth that begins to develop. You see, I think that we try to get here without first covering or bridging the gap of these steps along the way. So if we have the order, and the order is to make a decision that no matter where I am, no matter how well I am doing, I can do better, and I'm going to set an objective to bring about that order. And then we use the movement, which is known as a system, and I believe that Born Rich is a system. I don't believe it, I know it. You only have to believe something till you understand it, then you don't have to believe it anymore. But belief is the fuel to get you off the ground. So the first step, a clear understanding of where the journey begins. A very clear understanding of where the journey begins, and I don't know anybody that'll do that more effectively than Robert when he comes back up to start going through the basic concept and the creative process. Number 2, checkpoints en route to help you stay on course. You see, I believe we know, for the most part, a lot of us what we want. And as Napoleon Hill said time and time again in this great book, he said, you must know what you want, why you want it, when you want it, and an idea on how you're going to get it. You must know what you want, you must know why you want it, you must know, he said, when you want it, and he said you must have an idea on how you're going to get it. So we need checkpoints en route to help us stay on course. Number 3, a clear understanding of your destination. I believe one of the greatest definitions that I've ever heard of success in my life is that success is not a destination, never has been, but it is something called a journey. It has always been what is called a journey. It is not something you get, it is something you're becoming. It never ends. It's infinite in terms of growth. And number 4, a commitment. You know, I've spent a lot of time studying, as everyone else, books such as In Search of Excellence, In Pursuit of Excellence. I know when I look at Paul Hutsey, I think a lot about excellence. And you know, excellence is perhaps one of the most important words in your life. But one of the reasons for that is because Paul knew about excellence 20 years ago. His company, they published something called In Search of Excellence and The Pursuit of Excellence. But what does the word mean? I hear people say excellence in this, excellence in that. What does the word mean to you? Well, I'm going to tell you what the word really means. It means a commitment to completion. Folks, you never ever want to forget that. Excellence is simply a commitment to completion. The steps are not easy, but the understanding of the steps are easy. If you remember, it's a commitment to completion. That means completing the things around home. It means completing the things at your work. It means completing the commitments in your personal life. It's a commitment to completion. You will agree a person would be very foolish to tell themselves they are presently in Atlanta, Georgia, and their destination is Dallas. If in fact they were actually in Calgary, Alberta, with Dallas, Texas as their destination. Do you know how many people that are trying to set a goal, they don't know where they're at, consequently they don't know how to get there? Unbelievable as this may seem, this is the classical error millions of people make philosophically with their lives. They are not completely honest with themselves when it comes to recognizing where they presently are. Where they presently are. Honest answers to every question and serious consideration to every exercise and suggestion will clearly indicate 3 points. And this is what this program is about, is these 3 points. Where your journey begins. That's number 1. Number 2, the mental adjustments that must be made. The mental adjustments that must be made. Let me give you an example. Anytime working with a young person, I just love working with young people. They only have to understand what a mental adjustment is, and they'll make it quicker than you and I. Are you aware that your kids, they only have to what is called make up their mind. You and I have to change our mind. We can teach them how to make a mental adjustment, and here is the major mental adjustment that all of us have to make. Simple one. You must regard all adversity. You must regard all circumstance, all conditions in your life. If you could look at it as though it were an investment in which you can attract and learn more about growth in your life. It's an investment only. What a difference we'd find in everything that we do. And number 3, approximate time it will take to complete the journey. The approximate time it will take to complete the journey. Now, before you become immersed in your Born Rich program, form the attitude that this program has been prepared especially for you. This is for you. This is not for me. This is not for me only. It's not for Bob. It's for you. Especially prepared for you. Imagine that the author, that the speaker is a clear, personal friend whom you have chosen as your mentor. I wonder how many of us have a mentor. I always say when a program ends, it's the beginning. It really is. It says, make a commitment to yourself that you will follow every instruction necessary to alter. And you're going to hear this word so often. To alter your old conditioning. Now I want you to think, what is old conditioning? Do you know, any time that you get these buried pain remembrances, these nagging little things that grab us when we're trying to do something, or that tell us we can't do it, why we can't do it, and all these things that are just kind of like grabbing at us, these doubts and worries, that's your conditioning. You know, I'd give anything if a person would just grab hold of one idea. This one simple idea. Any time that you get feedback telling you why you can't do something, if only, folks, you could remember it's not a reflection of your potential or you as a person, but it is a reflection of your conditioning. I'd give anything for a person just to understand that. When you get that old feeling that you can't do something, you can only remember it's a reflection of your conditioning and not a reflection of your potential. Now I want you to think about this. Everybody is familiar with the great Bruce Lee, perhaps the greatest martial artist that ever lived. And you know, he was also a great teacher. And very often people they'd come to him and they'd say, could you tell us, Master, how we could be a great martial artist like you? Now he would take them out into a little gym and he would go through some of his moves. And what he was doing is he was trying to find out where they are. Because he said most people had the wrong information about martial arts. Just like many people have the wrong information about this word, success. This word success, this progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And after he'd take them through the little exam, he would sit down at a table, he'd put them on one end. He'd sit on the other end. And he'd put in front of them a glass of Coke. He'd say, I want you to look at that and let it represent. Think about it now. He said, I want you to let this glass of Coke represent your knowledge. This is what you know to be the truth. And he said, I want you to let this clear water represent what is the truth. This is my knowledge. This is what I've learned. And he said, this is what you want from me. This is what you want. I want you to think about one step here. How often have we looked into the lives of other people and we see things that we truly admire? We look at maybe their person, what I'd give to be like that individual. We look at what they have and we say, what I would give to have what they have. We look at what they do and we say, what I would give to do what they do. Folks, if we only knew, what we're looking at are nothing more but our own rejected thoughts. They accepted thoughts that we have rejected. So this is what Bruce said. I can't give you my knowledge because, you see, there's too much of yours. However, he said, if you are prepared to let go of yours and make room for mine, then we can work together. But as long as you hold on to this, I can't give you this. Think about it. Are you prepared to let go of what you've learned? And by that, I don't mean to just cast it aside, but to examine it. And to take a new idea that you will hear in 2 days here. A new idea. And to examine that idea, entertain that idea, to see if it will change, alter, and or improve the end result for a happier, healthier, more prosperous life. If you're prepared to do that, this program will really, really work for you. Will really work for you. Would you go back to the book with me, please? Second last paragraph. Rather than merely listening to the messages, questions and exercises, think. Think deep, penetrating thoughts. Ask yourself, what does this mean to me? How can I apply this idea to my life? Remember, not how can I apply it to someone else's life. How can I apply this idea to personal growth and development in my life? Because the simple basic laws of life are create or disintegrate. We're either moving forward or we're going backwards. In the last paragraph, set aside a definite period of time every day, weekends and holidays included, for the proper use of your Born Rich program. In other words, make a decision. See, folks, we don't have as many problems as we have decisions to make. By that, I'm not asking or suggesting that you should discount your problems. I would never suggest that. But you know, I am suggesting that you have the talent, the ability, the potential to handle and to deal with your problems. So do we have as many problems as we have decisions to make? It says, for the proper use of your Born Rich program, you must set aside different times to work with it. You eat every day to nourish your body. Look at your Born Rich program as a form of healthy nourishment for your marvelous mind, and use it daily until its use becomes habitual. Until its use becomes habitual. Now, in 2 minutes, I'm going to bring Bob up here to go through the basic concept, which is the real star of this program, is what you're going to see on the board. It's what it's all about. The first time I was introduced to this concept, believe me, it hit me. I had such impact on me. Didn't change anything right away, but it showed me a way to do it. In 1973, I had something written on a goal card. Had something written on a goal card. And on that goal card, there was something very interesting. I said, on March the 1st, 1973, what I wanted to do was this very program. Now, at that time, I could not lead this group you could say, in silent prayer. I could not have led this group in silent prayer. Could not. But I wrote on it that March the 1st, this is what I was going to do. Now, when February the 28th rolled around, now I tell you this for your benefit, not mine, for your benefit, because someone sitting here today is probably thinking exactly what I was thinking, but maybe in a different area. I had absolutely no credentials to do this. None. Absolutely none. And for 3 years prior, 4 years prior, wherever Robert was doing a seminar, I'd be there. Paul Hutsey knows that. I'd fly wherever he'd fly. I'd go wherever he was, and I'd sit in the front row. I have at home maybe a couple of thousand workbooks from seminars. A couple of thousand. Notes all through them. Some of them can't even read them anymore. Now, on February the 28th, after 4 to 5 years of a lot of pain, and there was, 4 to 5 years of a lot of traveling, and there was, a whole lot. A whole lot. There was a lot of things. You know what really happened? On February the 28th, I was no closer to the goal. Now remember, it was 1 day away. 1 day away. I was no closer to the goal. After 5 years. Kind of disheartening and discouraging, isn't it? So this is what happened. I got a phone call from Chicago. It was Robert on February the 28th, 1973. And he said, John, I got some bad news for you. I can't get to Toronto. Chicago is closed. He said, you're going to have to do the seminar in the morning. Now here it was, it's what I always wanted to do, and the first thing that hit me was fear, panic. And I remember giving him a gold card, and he said, you obviously had something to do with the Chicago airport closing. But to the day, it worked. Even though all the appearances said it wouldn't work. But you know what? I made a decision. This was my knowledge. This was his. I had to get rid of mine to get his. That's what you're going to have to do today and tomorrow.